So the K in the call letter is a little confusing, KDKA, because once things started going, K was the designation for radio stations west of the Mississippi River, even though KDKA was Pittsburgh. But typically it was west of the Mississippi. The mighty Mississippi was K, and W for ones to the east.
Oh, okay.
Which doesn't make sense. W means west. We all know W means west.
That's why they made the W. It used to just be a regular U, and they added another one. Now it's a W.
It used to be two U's, and then they said, let's W this.
Yeah.
With N being strictly for military or government use. Government.
Like Kurt Vonnegut. Government.
But over here in rainy Los Angeles, there were plenty of ham radio enthusiasts broadcasting around town long before 1920. As far back as 1908, Lee DeForest, who is the man who later went on to invent synchronized sound for movies, was broadcasting music from a ham radio somewhere in Los Angeles.
Really?
I couldn't pinpoint where, which I'm sure the
Government
authorities couldn't either.
Me and the cops of that era have one thing in common.
The Radio Vice Squad. There was a ham boy somewhere in Long Beach in 1912, as well as Joe McCarthy, not that one, broadcasting music out of watts, which is perfect.
Yeah.
Watts, kilowatts.
That's why they named it that.
That's what the Watts Towers used to be, radio towers. And then he just put like Sprite bottles all over it. And it's art all of a sudden.
You got to hide it. Don't let people know there's a radio tower right here.
There was also Fred Christian, who would later start KNX 1070 News Radio. There's going to be a lot of jingles that we compulsively sing today.
There was one where every time I read it, I had to say the entire thing. And it was pretty embarrassing.
It made my notes 4 pages longer, but it has to be there. And then there was Major Lawrence Mott broadcasting. I don't know if Major was his first name or if like it was like a Colonel Griffith J. Griffith. Or like an actual major.
You never really know, do you?
Not in today's economy. So Major Lawrence Mott was broadcasting out of Catalina Island, who would start KFWO. The first officially licensed radio station in LA was KQL, licensed on December 13th, 1921 by, what a radio man's name, Arno Klug.
Say it again?
Arno Klug.
Wow.
Is that a like Arno Clues?
Is this a crime? Are we investigators now?
Is this part of what they call in Canada Cluedo? What we call in America Clue, the mystery board game?
Do they really call it Cluedo?
They do. It's weird. I don't know why. And we have some Canadian listeners. Please tell me why they call it Cluedo.
Do you have to play with Play-Doh and they have to mix the two together?
Every crime, he killed him in the ice rink with Play-Doh.
He made a shiv of Play-Doh and put it in a kiln.
The butler did it in Wayne Gretzky's restaurant with the Play-Doh.
They killed Tim Hortons. They killed the Tim Hortons. Not a man named Tim Horton. They killed a Tim Horton.
Colonel Mustard did it with the stale Tim Hortons donut. So this Arnold Klug was broadcasting out of 1045 South Bixel Street, right across the street from LA Live. Now LA Live. He was just broadcasting live in LA back then. This station was tied for 6th overall station in the United States to get licensed, but they only lasted until June 9th, 1922. Also coming out in 1921 were KZC, KYJ, and KGC. I'm going to accidentally say KGB at a certain point.
Yeah. Broadcasting out of the KKK.
KKK. The racist.
KKK. News 90K.
You must be white. So KGC, which is now the aforementioned KNX 1070 News Radio. So it turned into that.
Okay.
Which KNX 1070 News Radio is now the oldest station in LA and the 7th oldest in the United States.
Wow, really?
And also one of the most boring stations. Even
Great jingle, though.
The best song they play on that. Or the...
You keep calling to request. Can you play the jingle?
Can you play the noise you make when you're going to do the traffic? Do 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 do. Oh, I love that.
Just a loop for 3.5 minutes. That'd be great.
So the call letters for stations went from 3 to 4 letters in April 1922, and they would either be randomly assigned to you, or you could try to make some word or meaning out of them, like KKKK. To varying success, Amy Semple McPherson got her radio station to be called KFSG for the Foursquare Gospel Church.
Right.
KIIS, KISS, was not for kissing, but because it looked like their AM frequency 115.
Oh,
IIS.
Cute. Boobs.
But flip it over.
Yeah, flip it over.
And you can kiss that, meaning my butt. On the other side, KGEF was a religious station, so they tried to spin their name of Keep God Ever First, and then Kind, Gentle, Empathetic Friend.
That's work. The other ones don't make me work for it.
KOG was broadcasting out of a movie theater on Grand downtown, so they tried to spin it as cinema with a K on Grand.
That's so funny.
KFWO over on Catalina Island tried to be Catalina with a K, Catalina for Wonderful Outings.
Some of them don't make you work so much, and they're just like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And the other ones are just like, okay, imagine the one is an I, okay, and imagine
if you get that decoder from the Da Vinci Code,
imagine the J and the K make the same sound, okay, and then
a lot of this early stuff, as you might have already put together, was just religious things, great songs. By June 1922, there were 25 commercial radio stations in LA, but the problem was that at the beginning, they were all sharing the same frequency of 360 AM.
Oh my God, so they'd have to schedule time?
That meant constantly be negotiating like, okay, I'm going to broadcast from 9:30 to 10. You're going to broadcast from 10 to 10:45.
Yeah.
All the stations in LA were working together on this.
That's really odd. I mean, it's cool. It's kind of collaborative, but also like all the religious church groups are trying to compete for everyone's faith.
And then comes like the Howard Stern of the day. Do you see this?
Reverend Bob Schuller.
Yeah. Bob Bowie.
Reverend Bob Bowie.
The honored Reverend Bob Bowie. Praise him. He's saying, show me your ankles to all of the religious ladies at church. So each of these stations would only get like an hour or hour and a half a day before they had to, like I said, let someone else on the air. Sometimes two stations could broadcast at the same time, depending on their location in the city and the signal strength. So like you could be like, okay, we can be on at the same time, but you're reaching people in Santa Monica. I'm reaching people downtown.
Right.
They formed the Southern California Broadcast Association to handle all of this scheduling stuff. But even so, on September 1922, the city issued a nightly listening period from 7:20 to 7:40 p.m. each night, where local stations had to go silent so that people could try listening to broadcasts coming in from other cities that had more powerful transmitters.
Wow, okay.
But you only got like 20 minutes of it to listen to like the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra or something, and then Bob Bowie comes back on. So I'm over I'm sitting on the pew, and boy, I know why they call it that. Bob Bowie.
There's this guy hanging from a cross. Put some pants on the guy.
Why can't we get a broad up there?
It's so funny. We took 20 minutes to like, okay, let's see what the real cities are doing.
Yeah, I know. You don't want to listen to this all the time. Let's see what a real station. Yeah, it's kind of embarrassing, but like also needed.
That's such like if we walk through a nice neighborhood, maybe the TV station, we'll see a TV in somebody's living room and we'll just from the sidewalk look. And that's your TV for the week, kids.
I bet the radio signal makes mute sound terrible. That month, they also added a second wavelength in LA of 400 to ease the overcrowding. And then in 1923, started spacing things out even more in 10 kilohertz increments so that several stations could broadcast at once. You didn't all have to share the same frequency. The number of stations grew as the 20s went on, but not by that much, really. In 1927, there were still only 27 active radio stations. The reason for that was because radio wasn't profitable. Right. So most stations ended up closing within a year because they're not making, like, there's nothing, like, my church isn't making money off of this, so why should I do it? Bob Bowie.
The only reason to have a church is to make money.
I could make advertising money. By the late 20s, the station with the strongest signal in LA was KFI, who had listeners in New Zealand, which is a proud tradition we now follow. The LA County Forestry Department had KFPR. The Pasadena Star newspaper had KPSN. Warner Brothers started running KFWB, News 98.
That's the one I was talking about. Every time I read it, and I'd have to be, how much time do they require? You give us 15 minutes and we'll give you the world. I forgot how much time they have now.
You give us 15 to 60 minutes and
we'll give you most of the world.
The Echo Park Evangelistic Association had KFSG. Trinity Methodist Church had KGEF. In 1927, KGFJ became LA's first 24-hour station, lasting until 1996.
Wow, really? That's a stretch.
That's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
That's 70 years worth of 24 hours. But the 30s was when radio really figured itself out in LA thanks to two things. The first was the invention of car radios, because LA was becoming car city, and with more cars being made with built-in radios, that meant more demand for stations that weren't just broadcasting Amy Semple McPherson sermons.
Yeah.
Cruising down Van Nuys Boulevard, blasting the latest Amy Semple McPherson sermon.
Blasting her newest hit. Hell.
Yeah.
How to get there. If I go drowning, don't look for me.
By Amy Semple McPherson.
What was the name of there was that record store that was famous on the Sunset Strip?
Wallach's Music
City.
City.
And Wallach's was installing car radios, wasn't he? Or did he invent them? I don't remember.
It was Madman Muntz was actually the guy who I believe invented car radios. And there's more history there than what we might have just said incorrectly, but Madman Muntz is involved.
Yeah, I feel like he's involved in so much.
I don't mean to implicate Madman Muntz in this, but it's time he has his reckoning.
Someone innocently named like Madman Muntz?
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, could you send this gentle madman to prison? Car dealers cellular ships started broadcasting out of their showrooms to drum up sales.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's smart.
The second big thing for LA radio was Hollywood. In 1930, a show called California Melodies was put on the air out of Hollywood, and it was jam-packed with stars from the studios and film-related news, and it got a lot of listeners, which meant that Hollywood just figured out a whole new revenue stream. Yeah. Ads started being sold, and by 1938, 600 actors had been paid a combined $5 million to be on the radio.
Wow.
It was a money-making thing, which is the only reason to do radio. But the radio also started catering to more local needs and interests. KMPC would broadcast the rehearsals at the Hollywood Bowl, which I would love to still exist. USC and LA City College were broadcasting lectures, which I think would also be kind of nice, depending on the lecture. There were some 72 educational programs being broadcast a week over 12 different stations around LA. KFOX in Long Beach helped people get emergency information after the 1933 Long Beach earthquake.
Right.
The LAPD started using radio communication in their cars. The Major Disaster Emergency Council started using it for emergency broadcast. The U.S. Weather Service did daily weather reports on KRKD. The Fruit Frost Division did weather warnings for local farmers. Commercial plane transmissions started coming out of Mines Field, aka LAX.
Right.
Ship-to-shore communication were going in and out of Torrance. So radio was big. Like it was functional and also fun in the late 30s.
I implore you, I'm begging you to understand that it was fun.
It's infotainment, Greg. It was also a major hobby for people. There were 3,500 licensed shortwave operators in town around this time, and radio magazines started being published in LA to cater to all these geeks.